And we're live. Thanks for coming, everyone. I am joined today by the one and only Jim. That's right,
Hello,
there are no
hello.
other Jims in the universe. There's only
No.
this one Jim. That is the truth.
Yeah, we had a
Um,
meeting. And they said, "Look, Jim, okay, it's up to you now." And I'm carrying the hopes of all the other gyms, and they said, "Look, we'll just change our name slightly. It's down to you."
yeah, they can be just,
Fingers
Jimmies and
crossed.
Jimoos and
And
Jamas,
James's and all that.
filthy Jameses.
Yeah, exactly.
So today we are talking about the end of the world, which I know
Mm.
for Jim and I is probably on our minds, like hopefully not too much, but maybe all the time.
Mm. Yeah.
um, so this style of discussion, I'm going to try and keep it as Socratic as possible, which is nice because I don't have to prepare anything.
Mm.
We're
Yeah.
just going to stay curious. And when we agree on what the truth is, then that's the truth. If there's no more questions, then we have to tap, as the martial artists will say.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I didn't prepare anything. I do have some predictions of what I think the truth is and where this
Mm-hmm.
conversation will
Good.
go.
All right.
Um, so, what do you think, Jim? We could share predictions or get right into it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, first of all, I want to hear from you. Not really a prediction, just kind of where's your head at the moment. How are you? How are you feeling? How are you getting on?
That is a good idea. We'll do a little status quo check. Always a good place to start.
Mm.
So recently, things have not been good for me in the subtle dimension. I mean, the most subtle, not spiritual, but just before that, where I can't even put it into words very well. But I've become very disillusioned by um, what's happening culturally around me. Now, physically, materially, I'm totally fine. I'm like, my car runs fine. I've got a new job now, which should be good. And a cat just adopted me, first time ever. And cats are cute and cool. But I mean, what's been bothering me is I'm thinking, what am I doing? What's
Mm.
the point of all this? I'm having some nihilistic thoughts and they're not really getting good answers. I'm like, okay, so, I'm going to prepare. I'm going to buy some land. I'm going to, you know, get some solar power, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do all
Mm.
this shit. So what? So I can just live like, no offense, but a loser in the middle of nowhere. And then what? And then, I mean, because like the healthy path of society, one of the big things there is family. So, I mean, where's my family? Is it my like spiritual community around me, or is it an actual wife and children? And what woman is gonna like come with me? I mean, I'm not saying they don't exist, but I
Mm.
mean, come with me to the middle of nowhere on our plot of land that where we're gonna build a house from scratch, and then we're gonna raise kids, and we're gonna tell our kids, oh, by the way, everyone around you's evil, and you can't trust anyone. Like this is
Yeah.
like I
Mm.
don't see the future here, like and it's bothering me. It gets on my, like I said, the really subtle aspects of my consciousness,
Mm.
way in the background somewhere. I can still function every day totally fine. I wouldn't say I'm depressed, but there's this lurking thing that's just bothering me.
Mm. Well, I think ultimately you have to focus on the positives, and I know that sounds kind of stupid, but you've moved, you've got your little kind of thing going on. You're growing things. You're in an area that's a bit more rural, so you've made a start, and I think you shouldn't really kind of get too wrapped up in things that are worrying you, and you should just kind of think, okay, you've started something, you're doing something that not a lot of people would have the foresight to do, and then if that's comfortable and it starts to kind of be a success for you, then maybe you can think about a girlfriend who then becomes your wife and kids and whatever. But I think, like, especially for me in this kind of situation, I've um, I've really been working hard to just focus on little things that are positive in my life, and I'm trying to not think of negative so much. So I think my advice for you is to really just kind of focus on the little positives that are in your life at the moment. And you generally strike me as a very positive person. Um, where, when did you come to Cambodia? When was that?
I want to say 2016.
Okay, so I've known you since 2016, and my the kind of the image that I have of you is of just a kind of not like a, you know how some people are positive in a very kind of fake way. I
Yeah,
you
kind of
know,
like Pollyanna might be a good word for that.
and it can come off as like, oh, it's just this kind of motivational speaker kind of stuff. But I think you kind of you generally have a positive outlook, but you're also doing things that are very materially good, that are kind of setting you up for the future. So I I would hope that there are also other people around you who can tell you this. But for me, I would just focus on those little things that you are doing that are kind of positive, and try not to get enveloped with negative things that are stressing you out or depressing you, or things like that.
Thank you. I totally agree. And yeah, I've been positive, very positive my whole life, very happy since birth in a very deep
Mm,
way. And so, yeah, even when I get into this weird little moody, subtle nihilist thing, it doesn't actually bother 90% of what I'm doing.
yeah.
But, there is a chance that when a big life decision comes
Mm.
up, that I might say, uh, that might come factor into it. But
Yeah, well, I don't think that would be the case, because of what I know of you and the person that you are, these kind of big decisions, you wouldn't just make a half-assed, non-committal decision. You wouldn't just go, "Oh, I'm feeling low today. I've got this big decision to make. Oh, it doesn't matter." Blah blah blah. I think you'll actually keep doing things that are positive. And uh, I kind of see in my own situation, there are things that I could be negative about. Like, for example, at the moment I live with my parents. Um, a lot of people might kind of see that as, oh no, I'm back with mummy and daddy. But coming back home and being in my kind of own environment, where I feel like, okay, for all the negative things that I could say about living back in England, it's just nice being back uh, with my parents in an environment where I feel like I can do everything. Uh, when I was in Indonesia, a lot of day to day things I'd leave to my wife, like, oh, we've got to ring the bank or sort out my tax or this or that. I can do all of that here. So any kind of little problem or thing, I feel like, oh, I can just, these are my people. I can deal with this. So and I feel a lot less uh, stressed than I did. Like uh, towards the end of living in Indonesia, I felt very stressed, um, very worried about the future. But then coming back home and being around the family, my grandma, my mum and dad, my sister, my uncle, all these people, I just kind of get this sense of life finds a way of working out. If you've already got kind of a good situation like we both have, something good is going to happen. Now, in 5 years' time, I might not be a millionaire living in a solid gold house. I might be working a job that's kind of unsatisfactory, or this or that, or living in a place that I'm not totally satisfied with. But there'll be enough positives in my life to go, I'm okay with this. This is cool. This is good, and I can just keep going. So I hope you don't just kind of crash. I hope you don't feel like you're just going to go down into this hole. And I would hope that you have friends and people that you can kind of lean on as a sort of support network. You said because your family is in they're in Cape. Are they living in? You said they're living in Cape Cod now, or they've got a house there, or
Yeah, we have one house in the Cape and one in the Boston area. I think they're still mostly living in Boston. I'm but then when the summer comes, they might, spend a lot more time on the Cape.
yeah. And I mean, even if you are a long way away from your family, I know you've said in the past, like you may not have the greatest, like tightest relationship with people. Just kind of reconnecting, I think, is something you could think about, or meeting new people. So yeah, and I know that sounds like very generic, stupid advice, but I really feel like that that really is a big key to happiness. Being very kind of, you've got people that you can really rely on when you start to kind of go a bit mental and a bit dark. You've got those people that you can just share your feelings with, because that's what helped me towards the end of my first stint in Indonesia. I kind of bottled up this feeling of, I don't really want to tell my wife that I'm unhappy. I want to make her feel happy. This is her country, and she's comfortable and she can do all this kind of stuff. But I was like, I really feel like a caged animal, and I have to break out and I have to go back to what is familiar. So then we kind of came over here, and then I was the one who, I was going shopping for her and sorting out, XYZ, and phoning up the local doctor saying, oh, can we register my wife at the local GP? And I felt like I'd reclaimed some kind of control. So yeah, that's my long-winded advice to you. Just, I think it's easy to kind of just focus on those negatives, but once you start piecing the positives together and you've got people around you, you're going to start feeling a lot better.
Right. Cheerio.
All right, mate. Yeah.
So, I think we should get right into it. For those who are listening later, no one is here right now live with us, unfortunately. But
and they may not be later on, but we'll see.
We'll see. Actually, the previous live streams we've done have gotten just as many views as the 2-minute videos, which I think is so interesting.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah. So, the end of the world. So, first, I mean, we both know what end means. So everything, what's the word? Revolves around this word world. And I was curious a second ago, so I, as usual, just went right to the dictionary. And here is the world. Obviously, it can mean an earth or a globe, like a planet. Or it can mean a part of the earth, like the Western world, or a period, the ancient world. This fourth definition, humankind, humanity, I think that to me is what most people are talking about when they talk about end of the world. But
Mm.
it also means just like the general public. And oh, this is interesting. Number 6 here. The class of persons devoted to the affairs, interest, or pursuits of this life, as
Mm.
in the world worships success. That one's a little more subtle, I guess.
Mm.
Um, anyway, what do you think about this, Jim? Is this should we like is this, first of all, is this accurate? Because the dictionary, while it's a great resource, I mean, modern stigma and connotations have their own thing sometimes. So,
Well, for me, a kind of a modern definition of the world is when we think about the totality of the media and wars and nations interacting and different groups of people. So I think it's all just this mishmash of, it's kind of, to me, like all of those definitions are great, and it all feeds into, it is just this kind of mishmash of different uh, different things. And when I think of the world, I'm not generally just thinking, oh, the sea and the grass and the deserts. I'm thinking like, oh, the like media and global relations and people and all this kind of stuff. That's how I see it.
mm, okay, so I think we can both kind of agree that this is the world. Like these six definitions mishmashed together kind of at the same
Mm.
time is basically the world.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we have our own ways of like preferring one aspect over another. Like I said, for me, when I say the world is ending or I don't like the world, I'm almost always just talking about people.
Mm. Yeah.
The natural aspect is always fine.
Mm.
It's just fine. I trust her, Mother Nature,
Yeah.
to be who she is, which is beautiful and terrifying, but running like a clock at the same time.
Yeah. And species may come and go, but the natural world is constant. And once we're gone, all that we've built will just be reclaimed by nature. So I think when people kind of worry about, like, oh no, we're destroying the planet, I can't really get in that kind of zone of, it makes me feel bad, because I know that the planet is just gonna keep changing, keep morphing, and eventually, when we're all dead, when we're all gone, it'll just reclaim. There's a place in Sheffield called the Ski Village. It was a kind of, it doubled as like an Olympic training center. You could go there with your family. Big place. It it got burned in a fire and then got shut, and now it's just been completely covered with trees and grass growing up through the. We had matting because we don't have proper snow. It's kind of like a crisscross of matting that you could ski on, and that's just totally been reclaimed, and that's just what's going to happen to us. Nature is just going to swallow us up when we've stopped doing our thing. So, I find it hard to worry about, um, like, oh no, we're not green enough, we're not this, we're not that, because you can do your little thing. You can maybe change your behavior in a little way, recycle your little plastic bottles and all this kind of stuff. But the fact is, China, Indonesia, um, India, they're all going through these massive industrial revolutions. They're all spewing out tons of crap into the oceans, into the air. We're all doing it. Right now we're using electricity to have a conversation. I mean, and technically we don't have to do this. This is not meeting our basic needs. It's meeting it's meeting a higher need. So if we were really kind of sat there worried, crying about the planet, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all. I'd be writing a message in a bottle, throwing it in the ocean, and hoping. I hope Alex gets this in North Carolina. I hope it just turns up there. So yeah, I'm just the big picture when it comes to that stuff. I'm not. It doesn't. I don't lose any sleep over that. How about you?
Well, you bring up a really good point about climate change. So this is a like irony. This is a very big irony is that, these fancy pants white people think when they talk about the end of the world, they mention climate change.
Mm,
Meanwhile, their family values and products and services and so many basic aspects of life are actually being destroyed constantly. But on the other side of the world, you have the opposite situation. China, India, literally destroying the material nature, the world. They're like so much pollution, so much horrendous shit. But as far as I can tell, and this is self evident to me, it's I mean, if you haven't lived over there and had the time to compare, then maybe not. But like mainland China, I just see happy, healthy families
mm,
everywhere,
yeah.
and people who really deeply understand the value of work
Mm,
and do good at their work as well, or at least they meet the basic requirements. I wouldn't actually say that the Chinese are excellent at work. That's more of a Japanese thing,
yeah.
but they're excellent at the like subtle, like the uh kind of the spiritual aspects of work, kind of like the psychological aspect of work. That's where they're
Mm,
really good at. They can maintain peace of mind and work in a factory 12 hours a day
yeah.
and not go home and kill themselves, and and still
Yeah.
do all their duties,
Yeah.
and
There's that
everything
kind of
is a
resilience.
well-oiled machine.
Mm, yeah. And I think that I mean that is kind of very important for a country to have that kind of solid. If you have that solid base of people who can just work in a factory, crank stuff out, and they're these tough people. That's your kind of that's your backbone. That's your bread and butter. Because what do we really need? We need farmers, we need miners, and then we need people in factories to kind of make stuff. Everything else, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a teacher. These are important in their own way, but those really base important jobs are these people in these kind of factories. So for them to be healthy, uh, happy with their lives is great because it's the beating heart of it's the beating heart of a country that in real terms those kinds of people being happy.
So if we take for a moment one country, like most people who are listening to this who are Americans who live in America and don't really go anywhere else, would you say that when they see in their own country those basic building blocks of society, like the miners, the farmers, when those like really essential um, services and occupations are no longer reliable, is that the end of the world, the beginning of the end of the world,
Well, I
something
think
like that?
it's kind of it's part of the beginning of the end really, and you can take a place like England as an example of that. In the old days, we had a very strong uh, industrial background. I'm from Sheffield. Sheffield was the steel producing center of the entire world, pretty much, for a long time. Birmingham, that was the car making powerhouse of the country. And then you had all these places that cranked out textiles. Manchester is the cradle of the Industrial Revolution as we see it in the kind of modern world. Leeds, that was a big textile area. Liverpool, Newcastle was the shipbuilding area, and then because money talks, when the people in power decided, look, hey, let's just get rid of all of this stuff because they can just do it cheaper in China and India and all these kind of places. You take the heart out of a lot of these communities, and I mean, I've never worked in these kind of industries, but I know enough, and I've seen enough of the places where I live that there's pride in those kind of jobs, and when you take that away, and then you replace it with, oh, here, have a job at Tesco, have a job in a supermarket, have a job in a call center, have something that you can't have physical pride in. I think that takes a lot away from a country, and we're reaping the rewards now, because I think now there is this kind of sense of, oh, we need to get that back. We need to bring that back. Well, it's too late now, because the whole world can just do it cheaper, and people fought the government and fought the police when these things were being taken away from them. You might have heard it. It's called the miners' strike, and it happened in the mid 1980s. All these miners' pits were getting closed down, jobs were getting taken away, and miners said, we've had enough of this, and they went out there and they fought the police and they fought the government, saying, look, we're standing up for our communities, and we're standing up for ourselves. Now, can you imagine that if a call center closed down, those people would be so angry that they would fight the police over it? Well, of course that wouldn't happen. And these miners and these shipbuilders and these textile workers and whoever, they could say, look, I did this job. My dad did this job. My granddad did this job. My great granddad did this job. Yeah, there's a lineage and there's pride in that. And when you replace it with all these these jobs that you're like, there's no pride in that. So I think that I hope that China continues to build 1 million coal plants a day and gives people jobs in those factories, because that kind of work, that kind of tough work, it builds people, and it gives them a sense of character that I think these other jobs don't really give you. Like, I've worked in a call center. It is tough and shit and stressful in its own way, but it doesn't compare to working in a mine. It doesn't compare to working in a steelworks. It doesn't compare to working in a shipyard. Yeah. So
I think you bring up a lot of good points, Jim. Like, there's three huge, like, I'm trying to remember them as much as I can, but continuing on with like the work. So what's happened with me recently with my driving job is I'm making less money, and I'm, I go, it's a 45-minute commute. And then from there, I have to keep driving. It's a lot of driving, but it's when I go to some guy's house, deliver something, there's no tip, and then I come back and I do that again. It sucks, but at the same time, that job is just for money. And so, like, a bad day driving, I might make like $16 an hour, versus in the local community here, I can lift hay bales for 12 an hour, which is hard work. But the feeling I get after lifting hay bales for a couple hours, oh my God. I've never, even on a good night when I make more than $100 just driving around, it's not as good. It doesn't fulfill as much.
No.
And I mean, teaching is even better than hay bales for me. But honest work, I mean, that it does something for the soul. Now, side note, I want to talk more about the societal things, like so economy. That's one thing you brought up. Like, so if one country used to make steel and all this stuff, and it was an important part of the nation and the culture and all that, and then they lose all those jobs, and it goes to another country, because everything's so connected now, I feel like that country can still be fine so long as the trading between countries is still like peaceful and equitable. That whatever lack that comes from losing one occupation can be put into another occupation. Um, but like you said, many times it's too little, too late.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
and I'm not doubting that, because obviously, people still can work and have a good standard of living, but I feel like people are kind of less connected to their work than they would have been in the past. Um, Working in a local market where you're an individual seller, and you've got lots of different sellers around you. One of you sells meat, one of you sells vegetables, another sells eggs, is not the same as going to work in well, you guys have Walmart, we have Tesco, these big faceless corporate entities. There's no real sense of, oh, this is mine. This is like, again, I and again, I've worked in Tesco, nice uniforms, I got paid on time, but I don't see that there's really pride in that. Whereas if you're in a local market, and I have direct experience of that, because my wife would shop at a local market every day. It's like those traders, those sellers, they think this is mine, this is ours, and they would have a direct relationship with the customer that you can't have working at Tesco. For example, you might have come across this in China, because my wife said this is a Chinese thing, that the first customer of the day is the most important, because if you treat that first customer well, that's good luck for the rest of the day. That's going to set you up for the rest of the day, and you're going to get some little sprinkling of stardust that's going to, maybe you might make a little bit more money that day. Maybe a new person will come along and start shopping in your little stall. So, but at Tesco, it's like you trudge there, and you've waited for the bus, or you've driven there in your car, you've opened up, and you're just like, oh, another day at Tesco, and the first customer comes, and you're not kissing their feet, you're not wishing them, oh, I hope you really enjoy our produce, sir. It's
Welcome
just
to Costco. I love you.
welcome. Get in, get out. And that's how it is. So for me, I can see that in a lot of things, there's less pride in your work, and I will fully admit to being somebody who I really I've done a lot of jobs. I've never really taken pride in pretty much anything that I've done, because I'm working for somebody else. It's a job. If they pay me on time, fantastic. I'll do my best, but I don't have that inner sense of this is really fulfilling me. So I don't know. I think to have a healthy country, one of the things you need is people who are genuinely happy doing what they're doing, or genuinely take pride. And
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just you used the word healthy. I thought
mm,
that was that's a really good analogy we can use for the rest of this conversation, because like the world is one being, kind of like when you look at countries, how they relate to other countries, you can look at them as individuals relating to other individuals. So the end of the world could simply be the disease of the world, just like
mm,
disease of the individual kills the individual. So you have a healthy country, and then it becomes more and more unhealthy until eventually it collapses.
Mm.
So I think that's closer to a good strong sense of what we're talking about. Now going back to the work thing, I mean this is really like personally significant to many of us. I mean having work that really means something for you. So there's many different ways that can happen, but it seems very clear to me when it's not happening.
Mm.
What's happening is, and I highlighted this comment here that I wrote, is you're basically a prostitute or a slave.
Mm.
That's why you have a job, and when you do it just for money, that's prostitution.
Mm.
That's what it is. So when you have a whole country of people who are nothing other than wage slaves and or prostitutes,
Mm.
all they can do is get mad at their pimps and their
Yeah.
masters. And then their masters are not going to do anything about it because they look so far down on these slaves. You got, you're I can do whatever I want. You're still going to come back to work. You need my money that I'm
Mm.
giving you. Like, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to do something better for you now. No way. And if you do have pride in your work, and which I do, especially as a teacher, and I say,
Mm.
oh no, I'm not standing up for this. Like I know how to teach well, and you're not going to tell me how to teach. Like that's
Mm.
how it is. Um, when the whole culture is like that, so many things will be better. But what's happened for me most of my life is exactly that. My boss will tell me something to do, and I'm like, no, I have pride in my work and I'm good at it.
Mm.
And that what you're telling me to do is bad. So I'm
Mm.
not going to do that. And then they go, well, everyone else is a dumb, ignorant slave that does what I say, and you're the only one that's not. So I'm just going to fire you.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, my my own experience of this recently was I was teaching in Indonesia, and I was trying to work out a way to come over to England for a decent amount of time and then go back to Indonesia. And we were teaching completely 100% online, and I said to them, "Look, I know technically, technically, you are not allowed to employ me while I'm in another country, but look at the situation. We've got COVID, we've got uncertainty about things. I really need to go back. For the sake of my mental health, I need to leave Indonesia. But I am willing to carry on working for you, and I'll even do that for free if I need to. You know, if it's a problem with you not being allowed to pay me while I'm actually in a different country, that's fine. But no, they wouldn't do that. So I said to them, look, okay, thank you very much, but see you later. I actually haven't had a full-time job since November, so I'm currently in this kind of this again. It's another situation where I could be relentlessly negative about. I could be like, oh no, I don't have a job, I'm this, I'm that, oh, I'm not worth it, I'm such a bum, and what's going to happen in the future. But part of me just loves that sense of freedom. I like being able to um, dictate my own time. I like being able to look for different work in my own time. So again, I could think about that kind of situation negatively, but I'm trying to think of the positives.
Mm. So I want to ask a really direct question here, and I can give you my answer to this question after I ask you.
Yep.
Um, if we look at, I mean, I think you'll agree that the cultural differences between England and America are not too big.
No.
So yeah, let's just say, do you think for, most rich white people countries. Let's call it like that, like England, America, Canada, the Anglo-Saxon ones, maybe like Germany, Norway too. Do you think that world has ended already? Is in the beginning of the end, or
Well,
we still have a chance to like make something nice?
I think that um, it's it's not going to end in a physical sense
Mm.
definitively. So there'll always be some kind of way of, and this goes back to the very start of our conversation
Yeah.
when I was saying, oh, don't just think of the focus on the positives, don't think of the negatives. Okay, there are fundamental problems with our societies, and we can all agree on that. People are very unhappy. People are over medicated. People don't find fulfillment in their work. People have a lot of people have bad relationships with their family. There's divorce. There's unwanted pregnancy. There's this. There's that. And I would hope that throughout this time, this COVID time, that people who are living in these Western countries have taken a little bit of time to focus on what is really important, and that they're able to maybe get a bit more spirituality in their life, whatever that spirituality may be, that they're able to connect with people on a deeper level. Maybe they're able to get rid of some bad habits. Maybe they were addicted to alcohol or addicted to drugs or this or that, and hopefully that they were actually able to make a healthier decision for themselves going forward. So, no, I don't really see anything as ending. It's just more that I would hope that people focus on things that bring true happiness. And I mean, currently we're living. I mean, in Europe, we're living in a time where potentially Russia is going to invade the Ukraine. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. That could actually start World War III. And everyone is worried about the fact that energy prices are skyrocketing at the moment. There's a lot of people out there who, especially older people, they have to make a choice between eating and heating their home. So I would hope people in the West start to kind of think, okay, how can I do something positive for the people in my life, or how can I do something positive, however small, for myself? Because things could start to get incredibly worse. Energy prices could go insane. We could all be heading for a Great Depression, another Great Depression. But I would just hope that people are just a little bit more kind of compassionate to each other, and they've maybe reconnected with people. And to me, that's how our countries can change. That's how our countries can get better, and we'll see where things go. But like you've written, and like I've said, it's not about things are going to end physically. We'll always be going along in some form, but hopefully people just start to live in a more spiritual and a more like physically meaningful, connected way. That's what I think.
Here's to hope.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to have some more hope. And what you're saying is true. That actually, it's so funny. It's very Petersonian.
Mm,
This, clean up your room,
yeah.
right? Like that. I mean, that's an oversimplification, but it is true that when we stick at just small, achievable things that we can control, and we do it positively and we do it successfully, and then we get others around us to do that too, things will be better, no doubt. Is that enough to uh, to counteract what's already been happening, I personally don't see it. Now, the answer to the question I asked you for me is that the world has already ended.
Mm.
And what we're seeing now is the slow external manifestation of something that already happened on a subtle level.
Mm.
And I'm once again, I'm talking only about rich Western countries. The same is not true in like Cambodia
Mm.
and Peru
Mm.
and like, but many things. But because we're all globally connected, these vast cultural failures of the West are externalizing throughout the whole world.
Mm.
So the economic system that we have here, which is trash, where we all have these jobs that we don't care about to make fake little money paper, it's
Mm.
so
Yeah.
ridiculous. But that's actually being enacted in small villages in Nepal and stuff, and it is slowly tearing apart the entire world, not just the Western world. But what I cling to me, like what is a healthy world? I was thinking about this while I was driving last night. It's one of the things I loved most about mainland China, which you don't see in Hong Kong and and other places, only mainland China. You see kids smiling and playing on the street, sometimes with no supervision.
Mm. Yeah.
That could be really bad. It could be like because there's a war and their parents were just slaughtered, and that could be horrible. But when it's not horrible and you just see happy kids playing and they're free and everyone's free and grandma and grandpa are out there, like that's the world to me. That's
Mm.
the human world, and that's the cultural world where there is happiness. And then one more thing that really to me is important is um, getting is like when you ask for something from society and you do indeed get it in return. So
Yeah.
for example, um, uh, like if you're living in an urban or suburban area in America and you walk into your kitchen and you say, I want some water, and you open the tap and some water comes out, you think that your need has been fulfilled, but not really, because that water is not water. It's water plus chlorine, plus
Mm.
fluoride,
Yeah.
plus abortion, not abortion, but like
Mm.
birth control pills and like
Yeah. Yeah.
anything else that like there's so much crap in that water. But it's not actually water. You didn't actually get like really what you wanted, but it's good enough, so you
Mm.
tolerate it. But because you tolerate it and you don't fight back, it keeps getting worse in all these other different areas. So, I mean, for me personally, that's just what it like. I want to be able to trust
Mm.
my
Yeah.
my fellow countrymen.
Yeah.
Like I say X, he says I want to understand people and trust people. One other problem, um, of mutual trust that like has to be there, but also what was it? There's too many things happening in my mind
Mm.
at once. Um, Damn, it's gone.
Well, just think on it, and I'll respond to a couple of your points. So, um, I think that it's an interesting point that you make about you were saying how you were in China, and a sign of happiness was kids out in the street playing together, laughing, and that kind of thing. And we are the last generation where we had a window of time where computers and mobile phones and the internet weren't all encompassing.
Mm,
Now, I don't know about you, but I, distinctly remember, um, being something like 11 years old, and dad, he got a laptop, and then my sister got a mobile phone, but I wasn't allowed on the laptop, and so there was a very definite period of time before that where playing, interacting as a child meant going outside playing. For us, it's, well, you guys call it soccer. It's actually called football. So we played football. You play tag.
Oh, actually, is it now?
Yeah. So
Is that why?
indeed.
Because you play with your feet?
Yeah, mate.
Nonsense.
Yeah, mate.
Nonsense. You
Yeah.
Brits don't know shit.
Football. You don't throw it, you kick it, mate. You bloody kick it. So that sense of physicality, you play football, you play tag, you play bulldog, which is the one where people stand in the middle and you have to run from one side to the other, and they try and catch you and stuff like that. And of course we had TV, and of course we watched cartoons and stuff like that. And we probably watched far more television than our parents did, and our grandparents, and all those things. But I feel like as a child, having that very tactile sense of play helps you to build up trust in other people. And the more that you just go, oh, just go play on a PlayStation or play on an Xbox. And again, I did my fair share of that as an older teenager. But I feel like your formative childhood years should not be spent looking at an iPad, should not be spent playing these computer games. They should be spent in the street where there is a little sense of danger, and you're interacting with different people, and you're kind of building up that trust, And I think that has a brilliant impact on a child's brain to actually, and you're working together in a team, and you're trying to figure out a strategy on X, Y, Z. And I think this technological, and also with COVID as well, with the fact that a lot of kids will have missed out on that, but that really is super important. That's a super important way to build trust. So that's the first point I was going to make about playing. And then
quick footnote on that is that there's scientific basis for that. Like play has been studied in labs, and everything you're saying is literally scientifically proven to be true. With animals, with mammals, and with people. When you're young, you have to physically play. You have to get hurt. You have to push the limit with your friends. Like maybe smack them a little bit, and then you get smacked. And then, oh, but that one went too far, and then dad smacked me even harder. You gotta just find it for yourself,
And that kind of that element of risk. I think there is that element of risk. Like for example, I remember when I was probably about 10. I already have a condition where I've had an operation on my brain. I have apparatus in there which is basically helping my kind of brain to regulate the amount of fluid that's in there. But even I understood the value of taking risks. Like I was 11, I was playing football. Somebody kicked the ball high up in the air. There was a much bigger boy next to me. I went up to try and head the ball. I got knocked down and I hit my head onto the concrete. And I think a lot of kids nowadays, they don't have that sense of danger. They don't have that kind of, that character building, learning sense of interaction and danger. That's just been taken away.
And furthermore, it is being forcibly pushed away by, there's a guy, a famous psychologist, who wrote a book about it. What is it called? The Coddling Down of the American Mind or something like that, where schools, and it might even be, it's legal now. Like you can't, you're not legally allowed in many places in America to have your kid go to the store for you alone. that if someone sees it, the police can come take
Yeah.
away the kid, fine you with all this stuff. So there's lots of things happening by establishment authorities that are taking away the chance to engage in risk, to become stronger, more advanced ethos individuals.
Yeah, and you only have to go back a couple of generations, like my grandparents' generation. You know, it's 9 a.m. on a Saturday in 1933, and my grandma and her little sisters are getting forcibly kicked out of the house by my great grandparents, saying, "Right, now fuck off and don't come back until until evening." And they would go off and they would go and play cricket, and they would go to the shop and this and that, and oh, we need to get some cigarettes for dad, and all this kind of stuff. So I know that it's kind of dangerous to just romanticize the past, but like in the old days, you had so many more opportunities to be independent from a young age, and to actually learn, kind of be in the world. Whereas now, I think a lot of kids are removed from that. And don't get me wrong, I love technology, I love watching films and this and that, but that formative experience of like you're out in the world, and the world can be a dangerous place, and you need to kind of navigate that, is important. And I think a lot of kids don't really have that, and it's a shame. And there was another point that you were making that I've forgotten, because I've kind of rambled on for a long time. You were talking about kids playing outside, and there was something else, but I've forgotten what it was.
Well, I remember what I was going to say, so I'll talk about that while
Yeah.
you maybe remember yours. So, after mutual trust, or I guess before like a strong mutual trust in your neighbors and countrymen, we have to speak the same language. So, one nation has to have one standard language that everyone can fall back on. Now, of course, it's also natural to have many dialects. And there's another thing I noticed in China, like there's a lot of dialect differences, but standard Mandarin is standard Mandarin. There's only a few places you go where, really poor villages where, they don't actually know standard Mandarin so well, or they don't want to do it so much, but anywhere else, if you have trouble understanding someone, you can just go right to the standard language, and then it's like, okay, we're fine. I don't see that as easily accessible or possible now in America. There are too many different substratums, subcultures that have their own language. It's not just like, oh, here are my tennis friends, and there's my Krishna friends, but like we're all American. Like obviously we have something that's the same with all of us. I don't really see that anymore. The only thing that I see that really unites every single American is I want more money.
Yeah, I want more stuff. I want
It's
more
something like
things.
that.
Yeah,
It's like I want more money, and more money is a good thing. That's the
yeah,
only thing we can all totally agree on. Even myself, like I'm like fairly renounced and spiritual, but I admit that like a lot of the spiritual things I want to do, you give me $10 million, it's going to greatly speed up that process, regardless of what it is. But um, the problems I've been having in my local community with getting a really strong sense of trust and communication is I'm not actually speaking the same language as a lot of these people. They have like, and it's not just a verbal thing. It goes even deeper than that, where I mean many people are in this egoic dimension where they say something, but they really mean something else. So then the other person listens, and they knew that that other person was saying something and meaning something else. So they guess at what they were meaning
yeah.
and then
So there's
respond to their
confusion.
guess at what they're meaning. I don't play that shit anymore. I like, I know it's common, but I refuse to engage because I know it's sinful. It's just sin. That's all it is. It's what it's coming from. I'm not saying it's a conscious thing, but like honesty is the rule. Like, I say what I mean what I say, and that's it. And for some people in my community here, and honestly, like American white people in general, not black people, but white people in general, they like they just can't communicate with me a lot of times. There's all these like miscommunications that don't I think don't need to be happening, but they are happening. And then there's problems that are going to come from that, and those problems can expand elsewhere. And if it's not checked, things keep getting worse. And
Yeah.
harmony is what we're looking for here. This is, I mean, you know, I'm like a very pro Eastern guy, but I think it's I honestly feel I'm being as unbiased as possible when I say that these collectivist cultures in the East, from India all the way to Japan, are more advanced than us,
Yeah.
precisely because they're collectivist. It means they value harmony and peace.
Yeah.
That is actually health for the nation.
Yeah. And it's very clear to see that in a more homogenous society, or a society where you do have people who are slightly different, it's important for people to have a shared history, a shared goal. And in the East, that's everywhere. It's China, Indonesia, whatever. And I mean, okay, you have a place like Indonesia, there's loads of different languages, there's different religions, you know, there are racial differences. You've got Papuans who are racially different from Javanese people. You know, you've got these little kind of strands and differences, but the fact is, all these different people, they have a shared history, and that is what binds them together. And it's that's the founding principle of the country. It's like we're all slightly different, but we're all bound together in this sense of, if you go back in Indonesia's history, you had all these different people working together to make Indonesia independent, to make Indonesia its own country. And quite frankly, you look at the West and you go, okay, you've got a city like Sheffield, and you've got a bunch of white people and a bunch of Caribbean people and a bunch of Pakistani people and a bunch of Albanian people, and you've kind of just slammed them all together, and you said, okay, now figure it out. And I feel like in a lot of Western countries, you have a situation now where our societies are so fragmented in terms of these different groups of people. They all want different things. They all speak different languages. There's no shared history whatsoever. And how is that a recipe for a cohesive, healthy country when people?
It's not. It's the exact opposite.
It's the exact opposite, you know. And at least in a place like Indonesia, where yes, there are religious differences and racial differences. A person from West Sumatra, like my wife, and a person from Papua, the opposite end of the country, can say, your granddad and my granddad were on the same side fighting the same people. Yeah. And that is what this country is built on. And we need to kind of maintain that going forward. And I think Indonesia is probably the purest example of what you would call multiculturalism. Like, I think in the West, it's a meaningless word. It doesn't mean anything. It just means a bunch of loads of different people living together, and you've all got the same passport, and we all need to pretend to like hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and like, oh, we're all in this together, but we're not really all in this together. But Indonesia's like this sense of, you've got this massive sense of lots and lots of different languages, lots and lots of different people. Yes, they want different things. Yes, they may disagree on certain things. But generally, if you ask the average Indonesian, what do you want for your country? They would say, I want us to be working together, striving to make Indonesia better. And I feel like you could walk down the high street in Sheffield, speak to 5 different people of 5 different backgrounds, and they want completely different things. And that's not how a country should work, you know. As
That's how individuals work.
it's just individual atoms like bumping along, and then the individual atoms form these different groups that kind of look at the other group like, okay, you're totally different from us. And I often say to my wife, like, if there's in Indonesia, if there's some kind of political or religious dispute, I say to myself, look, the situation you have is so much better than in the West, because you have a situation where you do have these differences, but people are generally on the same page enough to make it work. You really make it work, and you can have that shared kind of sense. Now, as with other countries in Southeast Asia, the group that is seen as kind of other are Chinese Indonesians. Chinese Indonesians are generally not seen as part of the crew. They're seen as outsiders because Chinese Indonesians, the Jews of the East, as I like to call them, traders. In Southeast Asia, Chinese were traders. So generally, their interactions with the white people who came along were not, we're going to fight you. It's, we're going to trade with you. Let's make some money together. So and it's, of course, it's not like that on an individual scale. Like, you know, Chinese Indonesians will interact with Papuans and Javanese and all kinds of people, and generally they get on with their lives. But there is the general sense of the Chinese Indonesians are the other people, and I feel like in the West, and I'm a native here, I can quite easily look at different groups and go, well, you're the other people. Yeah, you're someone who has come over here for an economic opportunity, and that's all it is. It's just economics. There's nothing binding us together to say we need to build something going forward, and you're not going to get that. Isn't going to come back. So an increasingly tribal, atomized society. Like I was in the queue, like waving my wife off as she was going through to Jakarta, and in front of me there was like a Pakistani couple. And then in front of them there was like a white couple, and the Pakistani couple had a little kid. The white couple had a little kid as well, and the kids were like interacting, and the Pakistani guy was talking to the white guy and like, haha, da 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 da, and then the Pakistani guy turns to his wife and says something. Now he doesn't say it in English; he says it in Pakistani. Now I don't speak Pakistani. I don't know what he said. He might have said, "Oh, their baby's very beautiful." He might have said that, or he might have said, "All people scum, all white people scum, and they all need to die." Is that a healthy society where you can't even figure out what the person next to you is saying? I don't think it's healthy, and I feel like what the East has going for it is this sense of, yeah, we are actually all in this together, and part of that does come from the fact that you haven't just engineered a situation where you slam a load of people together and go, okay, big society, we're all in this together, you know, multiculturalism, rah, rah, rah. You know, it's meaningless in the West. It doesn't actually mean anything. And I know that's not very politically correct to say that, but it's the truth. If you imported 1 million Eastern European white people into Jakarta tomorrow, do you think that would be a net positive, for Indonesia or a net negative? I think it would be a net negative. Just a guess.
In the short term, there's no way it could be good. No
Yeah.
way. In the long term, maybe. I mean, with enough programs to assure assimilation to the greater culture, which I'm assuming exists in Indonesia, where maybe it doesn't in other places,
Mm,
it could work. I've heard people talking about this, like in Europe. I don't see any way, because the cultures in Europe are much more rich than America. um, like Germany, France, Spain, the Eastern ones. They go back so much
yeah.
longer, and they have their own languages. Like they're much more rich than just
Mm,
America. So
yeah.
taking these European countries and just dumping in like a million guys from Africa, a million guys from the Arab world, it's not it. I don't see how it can work. Now in America, I think how it did work, because it did work really well. Like my family who came here a bit more than 100 years ago, they came with many others
Mm,
from the same region, Eastern Europe, Italy. They all came around the same time looking for the same things, and they
mm,
were allowed by America, by the American people and the government as well, to pursue their dreams for a more materially comfortable life.
mm,
Um, and I mean, it was life was a lot harder back then too. So
yeah.
people were working harder, and it was enough to just work hard and make more money next to some guy who, doesn't speak English yet, but he's
Mm,
doing the same thing, and you can still, trade and do this and that. But now things are comfortable. Um, the goal of just, the American dream of just like more
accumulate
money.
more stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, is that actually that good? No. Is that actually sufficient to unite a whole nation of 300 plus million people? No.
No, no. It's when you just go, hey, what do we have in common? Money. That's you can't sustain that. Um, you
Especially
know,
when the money is fake.
yeah, the money's fake, and people are struggling to get by, and a man can't go out and just work, and he can support his wife and then support their 3 kids and stuff like that. And that's another advantage of Indonesia. You can be poor as fuck and you can support a wife and 3 kids. You can be a motorbike taxi driver. You can live in a crappy little room, but you can raise a family. I've you know, and there are just kids everywhere. You
Yeah,
literally
I
cannot
love
move
that.
like half a foot and there's a child. It's like, and then you go on and you just a sea of kids. And that is a sign that, yeah, a lot of people are poor as fuck, but the society is actually very healthy because it's encouraging people to, like, hey, bring a child into this safe environment, this spiritually enriched environment. And do people have kids in the West? Not really, because the cost of living has gone, and the spiritual kind of enrichment of the country has gone. So you got this massive gap, and more people are like, oh, okay, so
Unfortunately, the economics plays such a big role in that. That's
it's so expensive. It is
yeah.
so expensive, and
That's what I saw in Hong Kong. It's the same traditional Chinese culture. They're trying to be based. They are that to some degree, not as mainland China, but it's so friggin' expensive to live alone. You're gonna go get
yeah,
married and have kids? No,
yeah,
you don't do that. So you see a lot of homosexuals there
yeah,
and raves and
yeah,
clubs and stuff, because that's all you can do. You can't
yeah,
afford anything else, so you might as well just go nuts.
yeah, and
What?
and and to me, like, you should. It doesn't matter where you are. A person, a man, should be able to go, right. Um, I've got a wife. we've got two kids. I'm going to knock her up again, and I'm not kind of shitting my pants over, oh my God, can we do this? Economically, can we do this? And I'm not saying that these people in Indonesia with 3 kids and they work as a motorbike taxi don't have worries and stresses and desires, but look at their faces. Yeah. Look at the way that they are. These people are fundamentally happy people. So why can't we have that in the West? Why can't we do that? We used to do that. We used to have a situation where you could actually support a family on not a lot, and you could get by and you could be happy. But I mean, now, and like, how is that going to happen? So I feel like another way for us to be happy is to create societies where it is actually possible to really support a family, a relatively large family by our standards, without wanting to blow your brains out.
Well, it seems that there already is a plan for that by the demons. And I'm referring to, what do they call it? Universal guaranteed income or whatever, UBI, universal basic income. That they're going to try and push that, but these are the same demons who have been destroying everything else. So I don't have high hopes for that. I mean, there's always going to be a catch with all these things that's going to make everything worse. I don't know if this is related or not, but this question that I have posted here, does individualism lead only to tribalism? I'm struggling to answer that. And I'm struggling to see where is the actual excellent place of individualism, meaning, yes, we're all individuals. Like, that's already true. It's already true that we all have different differences, but focusing on the differences, I don't get where or when that's actually a good idea.
It isn't, because if humans were animals who could thrive on their own, then we would. But we can't. You can't. A human cannot thrive just by itself. You just cannot do it.
One very rare exception is the ascetics in the caves in the Himalayas. But aside from that, yes, I agree with you.
Yeah. So, even in the most basic, like, hunter-gatherer society, there's going to be somebody in your little group with a skill that you don't have, and a skill that you need. So I just feel like, and obviously, we understand this, but I would hope more people are starting to lose that sense of just being an individual, and then they actually are starting to, oh, I'm going to join it could be something simple like joining a book club, or I'm gonna go to a greengrocer where it's an independent greengrocer, and that person actually knows my name and remembers who I am, and so I feel like we're just living in this place where we just kind of bounce off each other too much, and we're just locked into ourselves, and you can only really be happy if you've just got a network of different people who are kind of helping you and making you feel happy, because you can't just carry on like this. It's crazy. It's mental.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to steel man the opposite side. What I'm thinking is the hero, the leader. That's when individualism shines, is these incredible individuals throughout Western history, most recently maybe like Steve Jobs. I worshipped Michael Jordan when I was a kid. I never liked basketball. I was never good at basketball, but I saw Michael as a man and as a leader and as a figure, I loved him so much. I mean, I still do. Nothing really has changed. I'm just not a kid anymore,
Yeah.
But um, when, but this is something that's good. I think that happens. That does not happen in Eastern cultures. You don't have yeah, they have, there's Xi Jinping, they have leaders,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like he's the greatest example. Xi Jinping. I mean, I don't even know what he is. As far as I can tell, he's a Chinese dude.
Mm.
That's like, I don't see any discernible difference between how he talks, what he looks like. He's
Yeah.
just another Chinese guy who happens to be the leader. But
Yeah.
like someone like Trump, whether you like him or not, you can at least tell that, like, oh man, he's the way he is because he had to do all those things he did to get all that
Yeah.
brand and money and all that stuff. Like he had to, like, here's another Peterson thing of like, you know, uh, jumping, what is it, like clawing through the belly of the whale and then like
Yeah.
beating the dragon to save
Yeah.
the damsel in
Somebody
distress.
somebody from outside the accepted structure of politics who said he was going to come in and just be Superman and just smash it all to bits. And and you see that with Putin. Putin is far removed from any other European leader. What do I think of when I think of Putin? I think of him riding a horse with his shirt off.
Yeah. Oh,
Flexing.
absolutely.
Would Boris Johnson do that? No, he wouldn't. And to me, it wouldn't matter whether a politician came along and said, "Oh, we're gonna just do green energy, and we're gonna have everyone's gonna sit around singing Kumbaya," or it was a politician who was like, "Right, we're gonna smash people's heads in and whatever. We're gonna go totally right wing." To have politicians who you can literally look at and go, "That person is cool." Yeah, that person is somebody. That's what I want out of politics. And this is why I think American politics is so interesting for English people, because our politics is basically like you've got three bowls of porridge, right? You've got honestly, you've got one in the middle that's kind of, yeah, it's just all right. It's not too sweet, it's not too salty. They're the Liberal Democrats, right? They're right in the middle. Okay, therefore, a lot of things that generally people would think of as common sense, but they're not exciting. Then you've got Labour, who will be, their porridge is slightly milkier. And they say, oh, well, we're going to help the NHS and oh, blah, blah, blah. And we're all in this together as a big patchwork of different races and colours. And oh, isn't it wonderful? And let's weave baskets together and play hacky sack and all that kind of stuff. So you got them. And then you got the Tories who are like, hey, we're going to pretend to be all about big society and all in this together. But essentially, we're just on the side of the same people that we've always been on the side of. We care about big business and we just care about money, and you're all scum and you're all plebs and maggots. And we just see you as workers, basically, little worker ants that we crush under our feet, and then we just bring in some others from some other place. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter if you've got any shared kind of collectivism, and then we'll actually dress up like we're actually defending tradition and we're defending things and we're conserving things when they actually don't, when they're actually probably the worst out of the lot for just being like the most anti-human party. But it's just, there's no excitement. There's no sense of these people are actual characters that you could go, I'd like to go for a beer with this person. I can imagine that this person has this.
America's the opposite of that. Guys like George W. Bush, I'd love to do some lines of coke with that guy. I'd love to chill with that guy. But,
and you can look at Donald Trump and you can go, I bet this guy has been in a fist fight. I bet he's been in a fist fight. Yeah, but can I say that about Boris Johnson? I bet he's never thrown a punch in his life. And I bet it's not about being good, because I've never won a fight in my life. But to me, it's about looking at people who are going to be your leaders and going, that is someone. That is someone. And as an Englishman, I watch the political debates and the and the presidential debates, and I can go, this is art. This is good television. This is serious kind of entertainment, because these people are actually different. Whereas with English politics, it's just like this stew, this lumpy stew of just like, we're going to make some promises, and then, we're going to break some of those promises. But what are you going to do? What are the other alternatives? Yeah. It's not exciting. But in America,
Mediocre monopoly.
it's just boring. I mean, I used to be like, oh, I'm Labour, I'm idealistic, and now I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about any of these people, until they change the system, until we actually have proportional representation, and we can elect the Prime Minister directly. I'm not interested, because it's all bullshit. And at least in America, you can choose your president. I know it probably doesn't make much of a difference in the grand scheme of things, but you're kind of more involved, and you've got your own. A state can enact its own laws, and it's more. It seems like you're more. You can be more engaged, which is why I think in England, for a lot of people, the Brexit vote was so important. Now, I didn't vote in Brexit, but I know a lot of people who voted for the first time, because they said, look, this is an actual chance where my vote means something, for better or for worse. And, they did. More people turned out and voted leave, and they actually left the European Union. Now, whether that's a good thing, to me, is immaterial. It's like, we said we wanted this, you did this, and now this is actually happening because of normal people put a tick in a box and a vote mattered. But in a general election, most seats are, like, my seat is a safe seat. It's either Labour or Liberal Democrat. If you're a Conservative around here, or you're somebody else like a Green Party person, why vote? Why bother? Because you ain't going to get your representative, because Labour and Liberal Democrats get something like 70% of the vote. Now, if it was proportional representation across the whole country, that would actually make things different, because in Parliament, then you'd get more Green Party people, and you'd get more right-wing nutjob people, and it'd be an interesting. Then our politics would be way more interesting, because you would get some an argument between the Islam Party of London arguing with some green-haired hippie, let's nuke all the power stations guy for the Green Party. It'd be interesting.
Nuke the power stations.
Yes. It'd be fun. English politics is not fun. American politics, I laugh my those debates.
You laugh because that's what it is.
Funny.
American politics has become entertainment, just like everything else. Hollywoodism is, if there's one religion of America that isn't money, it's Hollywoodism. It's the idea that anything that exists, we can turn it into an entertainment package and get viewership and then basically more money from that. I wanted to, well, you can see the comment I highlighted here. I'm basically summarizing what you're saying, but adding a little more too. And this is, once again, mostly from my experience living in the East. But I want to talk about ethos ananda. So for most Westerners, I am recommending and encouraging and pushing as strong as humanly possible this ethos. So the ethos book that I wrote comes from Aristotle, and this teaching, the first student who really got it and practiced it was Alexander the Great, who conquered most of the world without losing a single battle. And that is ethos. Like, that is like when you're, I'm not saying we should go around, conquering, killing people, but when you're practicing this very ancient Western um, practice, you it's all about being the hero. It's about like getting all the glory and all the honor and really deserving it too. And there have been times in history, in Western history, where we've had men like that, and things become a lot better. But
Mm.
when things degrade and we don't have any leaders like that whatsoever, um, like Putin is such a funny example because he's a really, I wouldn't even say he's particularly excellent. It's just compared to all the other crap out there, all the other spineless, henpecked
Mm.
leader men out there. You know, he's not like particular. Like, yeah, I've seen pictures of him on the horse and all that, but he's like more like a normal guy who like a normal guy from like 200 years ago. You
Mm.
know, but considering the state of the world and the state of Western culture, he's like alpha male number one.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. It's not hard to see that in a fist fight, Putin would absolutely destroy Boris Johnson.
he'd
Would
destroy
absolutely,
everyone.
he
Destroy Trump. He'd destroy everyone. It's not
and
even close.
I'm not advocating um like dictators and things like that, but at least you can look at places like China and a lot of places in Southeast Asia where Cambodia has Hun Sen, where he's been in power for 35 years. They have these strong personalities in charge. Um, and I feel like in the West, having those kind of personalities is at least just a bit more interesting because there's nothing to really engage you in the political process.
Right. Well, what I'm talking about with ethos is that it's not just interesting; it's required.
Yeah.
That is actually healthy Western society is where you have men of high ethos leading at the top, not because they've been elected, but
Mm.
because they're just the best leaders, and
Yeah.
that's what leaders do. And then everyone else, it's like they're the role model, and everyone else we're like, oh, we put up pictures on the wall, we have all our false
Mm-mm.
idols. Little joke there, but no, seriously, like we have something to aim for.
Yeah.
We're going somewhere, and everything's meaningful.
Mm.
um this A lot of what's happening now in Western culture is like impersonal and dry
Yeah.
and meaningless.
Yeah.
There's very little real meaning that's grounded in reality that we see on our screens. Like
Yeah.
anything on mainstream media, it's like it's spells. It's all
Mm.
spells to get more viewers and more money and more um, innocent human souls to be, um, captured by the
Yeah.
demons,
And
basically.
I think that it's very easy to uh, understand that kind of sense of meaningless when and I know I've said this before, and this is the guiding like difference between the East and West for me is that, of course, materially in the West we have so much more than the East, but if you
I don't
ask
know, man. I don't know. Like
like,
Japan?
but I'm talking generally. Generally,
Yeah,
there are
okay.
there are some outliers. There's Korea, there's Japan, but generally, pick a random country in the East versus a random country in the West, and generally, the people in the West will be materially better off. But you ask 50 people in that Western country, have you ever considered committing suicide, or have you ever considered harming yourself in some way? Then I reckon the amount of people who would say yes to that would be proportionally higher than if you did that in the East. Now, from a very basic human level, if your basis needs are met, you should be happy. Yeah. If you've got food, if you've got shelter,
Mm.
if you've got a society where you're not getting bombs dropped on you, then you're happy. Then there should be no like, oh, I'm miserable, I'm depressed. Now we have much more of those basic needs met in the West. So why are we committing suicide in numbers that are way higher than the East? And it's because we're just not grounded in things that are important. Most of our lives are taken up with just crap and bullshit, and it's meaningless, and it doesn't actually matter, you know. So that's why people feel depressed. And earlier you were talking about, how do you hope people have maybe changed during this COVID process? You know, I would hope that more people who are kind of having these kind of feelings find avenues that make them feel better, whether that is talking to someone, whether there is finding spirituality. So, you know, I feel that that would just make a lot of people a lot happier.
For those listening who want to learn more about East versus West, well, I did that whole series with Fahim, our friend Fahim, cultural anthropology. There's a whole bunch of those on my YouTube channel, but the best one I will recommend is the most recent one called Dharma 101. I put the link here. I think, Jim, you might have showed up for a little bit on that stream, but
Yeah.
the main takeaway I'll share now is that in that lecture I gave vocabulary, words we can actually use that completely summarize these two worldviews in a single word. So instead of when we just say East and West and we have like, a vague idea of what that means, if instead we say logos for the West and dharma for the East, it makes way more sense. And it's it not just makes more sense, but it's like, it's impactful. Those words have meaning that's so deep and rich that it's almost like a mantra. Like sometimes it actually happens where I'm talking to myself in my head or with my friends, and I'm talking about dharma, and as I'm talking about it, I'm becoming more dharmic, which is the whole point of following one of these worldviews. It's much more than that, but anyway, I want to go back to the beginning briefly, or at least to earlier.
Yeah.
With like, what is the world and is it ending? I mean, if I were to summarize my own thoughts, I would say the world as it should be would be a decent human culture, and the world I see in a large chunk of rich white people countries is not decent, or is not a decent human culture. So therefore, the world has ended. And as you said earlier, Jim, I'm going to highlight that here. That doesn't mean we don't have, apple trees and like trains and like we have all these things, these physical material things. They're all there, and a lot of it is actually improving constantly in different ways. But the world that I want to be a part of, especially with all the COVID lockdowns that's happened, I just don't see it in, especially in these Western countries. I think the only way out is to either leave, which is ananda, meaning you can search for God and bliss by yourself, or just go to the Eastern world and do it physically while you're there, or you stay here and you do what I'm doing. You go to some rural red state, middle of nowhere place in Homestead, which, like, I'm doing that because that's the best thing I have available, but I don't actually want to do that. I want to, I'm very cosmopolitan. I want to be a teacher in a school with families and children, and like I don't mind taking a train to go to work, like, or anything. Like, I'm not sure I'd love to do that, but like I like being a cultured person in a excellent culture. And many people have told me they don't even think America has a culture. What to speak of a good or bad
Mm.
culture? We just
Yeah.
don't even have a culture at all anymore. And to me, that's the world. The world is culture, is human culture. And when that dies, the world dies. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's true, and culture doesn't necessarily have to just mean things that are uniquely yours, like paintings and writing and things like that. Culture can just come down to that you have a culture of helping your elders, or a culture where you feel safe enough to leave your back door unlocked at night. And
Yeah, it's really subtle, but
it's
that's what I'm talking about. I'm not there because there are. I talked about this with Fahim once. There's the dead aspects of culture and the living aspects. So,
mm,
like all the like any food in a country, that's culture.
mm,
Scrambled eggs, how you do it in
yeah,
England, that's part of English culture. But like that's not what you and I are talking about. That's not what
mm,
we really care about. We're talking about the living culture that you can't read about in books, that you have to be physically present with other people to breathe in and participate with.
yeah, and ultimately it comes down to, like, you want this culture of decency towards each other, and whether that is in a more cosmopolitan area or a more rural area, you want to treat people well and be treated by other people well, which is something I think that we had that everywhere in the West in the old days. You have generations of people who were brought up to be very aware of other people, but at the same time, you were treated equally respectfully by your peers, and that's something that I've seen that is still going strong in the East, but in the West, that's been eroded. Trust has been completely eroded, and I think we live in a very paranoid, isolated uh, way, and it's a shame, like, because you can have all the gadgets and all the gizmos, but if you don't trust or relate to other people, you haven't got anything. You really haven't got anything.
I also want to mention more about my personal situation.
Mm,
I don't mind growing food. I think, like, I love having hobbies like this, skills like shooting.
mm,
I don't have some big plans to. I don't plan to hurt any living entity with my crossbow and other
mm, mm,
paraphernalia I have here. But the practice of just using it and getting better at it, that's ethos. Just getting better at
yeah.
stuff. I love
Mm,
doing that. But do I want to live in a world where it's not just a hobby for me to grow a few things of spinach? It's because I have to, because my countrymen are so incompetent that I might show up to the store one day and there's nothing there. And then
yeah.
2 weeks later, there's still nothing there. Um, it's because to me, it's not just that I want food and the resources aren't there and I have to work a little harder to make the
Mm,
food. I wish it was that simple, because like that's what I'm used to, and that's like the Chinese practicality. Oh, no food in store, you make food. Why you
yeah.
cry? Why,
Mm,
why you like this? You make food, then you have food. You shut up. You do it. Okay.
mm,
But it bothers me though, because um, it's like that meme where that it's like you had only one job. It's like,
mm,
I think what a lot of this is coming down to is people have a job, you could call it dharma, and they're
mm,
not doing their job because, and that's the end of the world. That's why electricity might get cut out, or Walmart will have empty shelves, because there's a guy whose job was to keep the shelves full and he's not doing his job. Because if, like, let's play it out in reality. Like, they say, oh, well, we're all out of this. And, well, we can do this instead, but it'll cost 10 times more. and he says, "Oh well, we can't. Let's just keep it empty." Like or
Mm.
whatever. Like that's not doing a good job. Your job is to keep the shelves full. You have to do that. And if you have to like call a local farm and like or like figure out with some clever way how to do
Mm.
that, and like oh yeah we can't accept dollars anymore because they're trash, but yeah give us some silver barter, our cashiers will try to barter as best as they can, like that can work, if people are ready
Yeah.
to do their job, not just because they're whores and slaves and they need to
Mm.
make money, and it's just like you know oh, I just do what master tells me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then and anything that is outside, it's not my problem. That's corporate. That's someone, blah blah blah. No, when they take pride in their work and do it very well with ethos, then there is a world. But
Yeah.
when that erodes, that means the world has ended, I
Yeah.
think.
If more people were doing something that was useful, that was actually useful, then we'd be a lot happier. Like you were saying with the food, we have a Tesco down the road. But what if everyone in the community just grew vegetables in their back garden and swapped those vegetables with each other? I guess generally people would be a lot happier. And uh, having lived in these Asian countries, a lot more people, and there are bullshit jobs and meaningless things that people do for a living in the parts of the world that I've lived in, Indonesia, Cambodia, Thailand. But what, as a percentage, way more people do something that's practical and useful than in the West. You drive down any street in Indonesia, there's like a little self-employed mechanic, there's someone pushing a cart along the road with like produce, there's a little restaurant. It's a These are nations of self-employed people providing something very useful in the local community, whereas a lot of our jobs in the West, it's not providing things that we really, really, really need. A lot of it is just, oh, I work in a marketing company and, blah, blah, blah. And I say that as someone who I trained as a journalist, I've worked in marketing before, I've made some decent money out of it. And I don't begrudge anyone who is actually in that business, but ultimately it's pointless. It doesn't, we could get rid of it and it wouldn't really make that much difference. So I feel like, yeah, if we are to kind of improve, then if more people are doing jobs that are actually useful to our most basic needs, things would be a lot better. But you know, is it feasible? Is it possible? Time will tell.
One thing more about work, which is, I mean, I think it's so utterly crucial and so not even underestimated. It's not even perceived. But like, so many people that I see in this country, they they don't know what their job is.
Yeah.
So the criteria that they follow is an arbitrary made up list of crap on a piece of paper or on a website or
Mm.
whatever. But like the actual job of a policeman is to uh, protect the city, the town, whatever. And like if like their boss, a lot of people's bosses are telling them to do the wrong thing, and
Yeah.
that goes against their job, but people are complying with that, and
Yeah.
that
Because
will be guaranteed to make things worse. And the principle for this is very simple: when you follow an unjust law, you are unjust. When you follow a just law, you are just.
yeah, like the uh, the amount of paperwork that a policeman has to do nowadays relating to his job is way more than it used to be. You know, a lot of meaningless paperwork to let's cross every T and dot every I to make sure everything's filed away properly and fill
And
out the quotas.
In the beginning, I bet there were zero quotas. It was just, oh, there's a crime, oh, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
There's no crime, just sit on ass. Because most of the world, that's what policemen do. They sit on ass, and it's fine. It's not that's good. That means there's no crime. Like when I was in Chengdu in 2015, in a city of 14 million people or so, and I'd go to I would spend days, I wouldn't even see police. And when I do, they just like their little utility belt would have like one big bottle of green tea and like a flashlight. And they're just like, duh. They have nothing to do.
Yeah. In Cambodia, you walk down the street and what do you see? You see policemen just sat there in their little plastic chairs, drinking a beer, waiting for somebody to come by to then go, oh, you're not wearing your helmet properly. Give me some money. I feel like as well in a job like nursing, you know, you're trying to just save people's lives, make people happier, make people healthier. The amount of paperwork that my mum had to do as a nurse, she's retired now. When she started, she didn't have to fill all this and type in the computer, like log this and blah, blah, blah. You just help people. They got a problem. And if you can solve their problem, you solve it. If you can't, you refer them to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And because if you think about it, like even legally today, like, what if we just stop doing all that paperwork? I don't think anything will happen because the whole point of how this came up, not in every circumstance, but a lot of times it's because people were getting sued. But if you are a doctor, nurse, teacher, whatever, and you help someone in your job and they're happy and they're helped, they're not going to there's no problem that's going to come after that. The only problem is, you know, you don't fill out the paperwork and your boss is mad because his boss is mad and his boss is mad. But if people have ethos, if they have bravery and righteousness and knowledge and real knowledge to back it up, and they're willing to just say, no, I did a great job. And you need to look at me and tell me, thank you, good job, period. That's it.
And also another problem is that I see this all the time where somebody complains that my manager is busting my balls, but my manager can't actually do my job. Yeah, my manager is senior to me, but doesn't have the skills and knowledge that I do to do this job. So what's the point of this guy, right? So there are loads of those people in middle management who can't do the job of the people below them and either don't have the connections or the drive to get right at the very top of the organization. Again, that's a worthless, pointless job.
Yeah, it's entirely worthless. Most middle management jobs, I feel, could easily be replaced by computers. An algorithm. So like the people doing the work, I mean, well, it means they have more work to do doing data entry, but you know, whatever they do, they submit it to the computer and then the computer says, okay, this guy's running at 20% efficiency. This guy's 100% efficiency. We're going to give him a bonus. We're going to take away from, you know, and then it'll all mathematically, that's the job of the manager anyway, right?
Yeah. And then, you know, we've got rid of these middle managers. We've got this group of people. Hey, let's start up a farm collective and they can go and work on the farm, or we can build a factory and they can work in the factory. They can do something that's actually like worthwhile to the community. And you can do that with pretty much any job that has come along in the like post-internet era. A lot of these meaningless jobs that you could go, right, okay, we need the people at the bottom in this organization and we need the people at the top in this organization. Let's get rid of some of these people in the middle and let's reallocate them to be plumbers and to be electricians and to be farmers and to be this and to be that. Now, that'll be a shock to a lot of people. That would be a bit scary, but it would actually be something that they would enjoy. Like me, I really do. Part of me want to do something like working on a farm or learning a trade or something like that. There are so many people like me who are not satisfied, who are intelligent, who kind of feel like, oh, the jobs I do, I'm not fulfilled, and also I'm aware of my own kind of uselessness in the grand scheme of things. I want to do something that's actually useful for the people around me, and you know, more people would be happier doing those kind of jobs.
It's actually um, can be addicting in a good way, and
Mm,
but it's more than good. My guru Prabhupada, he said half of his mission he didn't even get to begin. I mean, he spent most of his time preaching about God and all the spiritual transcendental stuff,
mm,
but
mm,
he said the other half of it is actually living according to nature and farming and living sustainably so that one, all your needs are taken care of by the community of
mm.
devotees in this case.
Yeah.
So two, all that extra time you can spend for God, which is what you should be doing. But also more importantly, three, this kind of work, this agricultural work, it removes sins.
Yeah.
It's itself a kind of prayer. And like when you have to wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning to milk the cow, and then
Mm,
you have all these things on rotation that are floating around in your mind, which are directly related to this planet, which is another one of God's creations. You're it's yoga. You're uniting yourself with everything else around you, and anything like all these sinful things, they're
mm,
spells. They're just spells. Like it's fine if you see a pretty girl and you go, she's pretty, but
mm,
the sin comes from everything after that, where you go, she's pretty and she'll be mine,
mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or I should talk to her, or then you do talk to her, and it's like, oh, but I didn't do that, and I want to blah 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 blah.
Mm, yeah.
That's all mental wizardry mind crap. When you're actually living in reality, by reality I mean like soil and carpentry and like this sort of three-dimensional world, um, those sinful things are like in a different category. It's harder for them to enter your psychology
Yeah.
because you can look at them as the absurd things that they are. And
Yeah.
our leader here, Maduha, he he's the perfect example of this. He's like when he bought all the land here, then he built his own house. He helped all his friends build their house. He built the temple, and so he just like he can build stuff,
Mm,
and like when there's a problem, like and he needs to finish a bathroom and in the barn or whatever, like he just starts doing it, and like we have trouble helping him because he's so addicted to doing it because it's so fulfilling. It's like you can tell he himself is benefiting so much from this work that he's like he needs to find polite ways to say no, like i'm
mm,
i, I want to do this, let me
mm.
work at this.
Yeah. And just as earlier we were kind of talking about things that you were feeling negative about. It's easy to see how passionate you are about this, that you're doing something positive by being involved with these other people, helping to create this community. And I feel a lot of people would kind of benefit from something like that on a wider scale if entire countries started to kind of think more in a, okay, what can we get rid of, what do we not need physically, what do we need spiritually, kind of paring things down in a positive way. um I mean, the only country that has really done that in a modern time is Cambodia, and they did it the wrong way because they did it in a way that was very negative. They killed all the educated people, and they emptied people out of the cities, and they said money is banned and Western medicine is banned, and you're all going to work on the rice field. But if you could do something like that in a positive way, I think more people would kind of go, "Hey, my old life used to be meaningless. You know, I had a meaningless job, I had meaningless interactions with people, but now in this new society where we've kind of cast off a lot of things that are useless, and I'm more focused on the land and things around me, that can help us grow. But there's no blueprint for that. The only blueprint we have is something horrible and negative in what happened in Cambodia. But I hope that more people can basically do what you do, and it kind of spreads, and we kind of grow and evolve in that way. But who knows?
It is happening slowly but surely. The biggest group that I've seen, there's two groups in my mind in the West, especially. They're both in America, most centered in America. But the two groups are, one is the Amish,
Yeah.
and the other is the what we call the Unbearables, which is the cult of Owen Benjamin, the comedian who was banned from everything.
Yeah.
I saw that they made a documentary recently about Beartaria. They bought some land in the middle of nowhere, and they started building cabins, and they were able to get guys from all around, proper guys. I mean, like lumberjack men guys, to come and build, and this was just a communal effort. There was, aside from the money to put into the land, I don't think anyone was paid. Um, you know, they just worked hard and they built their own paradise where now anyone in the community who's a bearified bear
Yeah.
can come and stay in the cabin, and they can do their own comedy shows there. But really, I mean, the oldest tried and true success story is the Amish.
Yeah.
And I think with the Amish, it's a classic example of necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
When you do not have electricity, when you do not have all these modern comforts, you have to, one, make a lot of babies because you need the extra
Manpower.
resources. Two, you have to figure out a way to put away your stupid differences. Oh, but I like that Netflix show, which is different from your show, and that's important. No, you have to put away all of that stuff. You have to. Otherwise, you will not make it through the winter. And so, like, those criteria force the Amish to be really good at what they do. And they are, and they have been for some time. Of course, it's really hard to like artificially impose on yourself some of these
Yeah.
renounced
Definitely.
attributes. One thing that I didn't get to mention, which I wrote earlier, is about apprenticeship. This is one thing. This is one word which we don't use that much anymore, but it's the best. It's a good word which explores the opposite realm to where many people live, which I'd call the wage slave prostitute world of work. When you're an apprentice, there's no corporation, there's no safety net. It's just you and the teacher or master, and you just study from them. One, you have the shelter of them, and this is a nice thing about corporations is they do provide excellent shelter, like that, like do your taxes for you, insurance, and like there's a lot of different things where it's really not that bad to be working in a corporation where you can do one little task and then you can be completely brain dead in every other way, and you get a paycheck all the time. Like there's a lot of work that went into that system, and there is benefits there. But anyway, with the apprenticeship, your master is all of those things. So the bad thing is if you like make a remark that's insulting him, then he can just say, okay, you're fired. Like You're
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
I'm releasing you. Goodbye. Whereas if you do a really good job, then eventually you become the master and you have your own shop. And But anyway, it's not an economic thing. I wanted to talk about apprenticeship as a cultural um, superior method of work, of actually working and having an occupation correctly in the world that's based more on the laws of nature and less on the laws of
We need to create something.
capitalism.
We just need to
Yeah.
create some job because we've got these people to do a job. And you know, the this is none more apparent in the surnames of people in places like England. What are surnames in England? Baker, Miller, Archer,
Yeah.
Thatcher. Jobs that people did. You're Ben the Thatcher. So then generations down the line, everyone who comes after you is Thatcher, whether they are actually putting straw on the roof or not. So nobody's going to have the surname call center worker. Nobody's going to, hi, I'm Jim call center worker, and this is my son, Ben call center worker.
I
No,
wouldn't be so sure, Jim. That might actually happen in some places. I wouldn't be surprised.
now that really is spirit. That would really spiritually be the end of the world. Like on a spiritual sense, that's it. It's game over when that starts happening. But like I feel like watching somebody do something, and then that's how you learn to do it, is such an important way of like interacting and how to act. And we talked about it before, like physically doing something, and I mean, now I I can't imagine the number of people who are actually doing apprenticeships in this country. It can't be that many because we need manpower. Let's just bring it into the country from outside. They're totally different, but let's just bring it in. So yeah, it totally makes sense what you're saying. We have lost it, and it's a shame. And the day that people start changing their surname to Tony Middle Manager and Sarah Social Media Executive, those surnames won't live on, because we're just going to humanity will just be like, right, we need to give up. That's it, done.
That's the end of the world according to Jim. When your last
Yeah,
name is middle manager, that is the
yeah,
definitive sign we are done.
yeah, exactly.
Wrap it up. We're done. You're done. You're all fired. Goodbye.
So you're all done.
Uh, well, I did have something to say, but I might as well refer to reality again. We are just past 2 hours, which is quite nice. I could keep going, although I probably need to get another drink from my throat. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm fine. I'm not sure when my next meal is going to be served. I think it might be in a little while. So I think for me personally, this is a good place to wrap up. Are you going to carry on?
No, we can wrap up. Uh, let's make some closing thoughts. Um, well, I think one thing we kind of learned and agreed on and kind of already knew is that the first world, Western world, has already is well underway into destruction,
Yeah,
whereas the opposite of that would be like the third world East. Like the
yeah,
Eastern third world is like very healthy and happy and fine.
yep,
Although, of course, like materially, yeah, I mean, like they're still struggling to get clean water in some places, but happy families, people doing their jobs correctly, living in harmony. That is the world, right?
yeah, And because there'll always be a physical world, you just need to keep going, and you need to focus on the positives in whatever situation you're in, for me, because that is what really kind of brings you fulfillment, whether that's something positive on a spiritual level, it's something positive to do with your family, something positive to do with the neighborhood you're in, something positive to do with your work. Please, whoever's watching this, just focus on the positives, and that's going to sustain you. Don't dwell on the negatives.
Yeah, it's really simple, but it does work. I was thinking for the tiniest, briefest moment the other day, maybe yesterday, that of the unbelievable mercy and fortune and blessings I have in my life, which
Yeah.
I just completely ignore time after
Exactly.
time. I'm still not too big on gratitude. I think for me, it's always been like a temporary relief, but like counting your blessings and really just not taking them for granted. That's the key. It's like whether you have that feeling of gratitude or not, maybe it doesn't matter, but having solid knowledge of where you are and how much worse it could be, how
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
yeah, then all those puny, trivial, petty problems will become exactly what they are: puny, trivial, petty. And yeah, I'd say for those in the West who want to maintain the West, you have ethos. You have the practice of excellence, sheer excellence, and the strong, heroic um, leader of man. That to me is really what the West is about, and we can bring it back. But I mean, at this point, we're like so degraded that like we're not even sure like what it looks like, even, you know. And oof, gonna get depressed talking more about that. But
Don't.
yeah. Well, another thing we learned though is that it's not just that like the Eastern culture is more sound than the Western culture. It's that um, there's an inherent problem with individualism, right? Whereas collectivism is inherently it's based on nature. So it's not actually an Eastern thing. It's just a grown up thing. Like, we're all individuals. You can't change that. And we're all a collective unit too. You can't change that either. But when you have a good collective unit, then all it trickles down and all the individuals will be a little bit more happy. Whereas if you focus only on, hey, we're all free and we can do whatever we want. Well, maybe I want to kill you and maybe he wants to kill them. And then there's going to be tribalism. It's guaranteed to happen. So working on harmony and peace, that's the beginning and end of a healthy world. Any final thoughts, Jim?
No, you've wrapped it up perfectly there. Definitely.
Okay, then. Stay wise, everyone. Don't stop seeking the truth, and we'll see you next time. Oh, where's my mouse here? My mouse died. Okay, there it is. Adios.